Go ahead and call the Wednesday, February 27th, Logansport Board of Public Works and Safety meeting to order. Please join me in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Sorry for the delay. Roll call. Carol Sue, please.
Mayor Franklin.
Here.
Ron Miller.
Present.
Chris Armstrong. Here.
All members are present. Accounted for. Approval of minutes, February 20th, 2013.
I read them, and I would make a motion for the approval as presented in the minutes of the February 20, 2013 meeting.
Second.
It's been moved and properly seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? It passes on a vote of 3-0. Approval of claims in the amount of $230,679.95.
I would make a motion for the approval of the claims as submitted in the amount of $230,679.95.
I would second that motion. Is there any discussion? Any questions? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? It passes on a vote of 3-0. Approval of licenses. Chris Hallam, electrician's license.
I would make a motion for the approval of the electrician's license for Chris Hallam as presented.
Second.
It's been moved and properly seconded. Is there any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Passes on a vote of 3-0. There are no changes to the agenda. Are there any visitor comments? Okay, hearing none. Under old business, I have Dan Williams with a request for a curb cut.
Yeah, Ted, the gentleman from Twin Shores are here also.
Hi.
We're the ones that want to cut the street.
Sure, come on up, have a seat if you like. Dan, you can join him. This is sort of standard operating procedure for us. We have to go through these to make sure that we don't have rogue curb cuts going on, so this is just a very informal procedure that we have to go through. So I can only assume that this is going to be related to the new movie theater. Yeah.
Correct.
How are things going out there?
Pardon me?
How are things going?
They're going slow for the weather.
With the weather, yeah. I think your map pretty well explains what your intent is and why you have to do it. Do you have any questions?
None.
You have any questions? I would make the motion that we approve the curb cut for to be located at 3910 Lexington Road.
Second.
It's moved and properly seconded. Is there any further discussion? Anything you'd like to add?
No.
Do you have any idea when you'll be doing the curb cut?
I would like to try and do it next week.
Okay. Sounds good to me. It's been moved and properly seconded. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Pass on a vote of 3-0. Thank you.
Thank you.
Under old business, we have Bill Drinkwine. The bow tie. Yeah, liven it up a little bit. Yeah. Looks good. I don't think I could tie one. Yeah, Velcro in the back. Yeah, that's my shoes. Yeah.
Shouldn't they do this after?
I'm sorry? I can't. I mean, you have Japanese Americans. We've invited them to attend Board of Works meetings multiple times, and they won't come. No. But if you stop by my office afterwards, there'll be a state statute that says why they should come to Board of Works meetings. And I don't know, have I already given you that? If you stop by, I'll give it to you. Okay, we're going to wait on the building commissioner. We'll have code enforcement come on up. That's all right. That's important business. Code enforcement.
Under old business, 16/18 Richardsville Street, the Cordova property, that property has been brought into compliance and has been cleaned up.
Okay. While you're here, would you mind going ahead and giving us your report for the month? I mean, for the week?
Certainly. You have in front of you a copy of my report that lists my totals for the past week plus year-to-date totals. There had been one scheduled to appear today. It was 817, 819 North Street. That property has been cleaned up, and it has been brought into compliance as well. It's a short report this week. Nobody was ordered to appear other than him. It has been taken care of. Just to give you an update on a couple things, 700 Washington Street, you had ordered a cleanup on that a couple weeks ago. Dan and I went over there with the intentions to clean it up, and he had some equipment, mechanic equipment like an engine puller and an engine mount and things like that that could be rather expensive. So we elected at the time not to clean it up. I did, however, send him another certified letter advising him that he had until March the 7th, which will be a week from tomorrow, to clean that property up and move the equipment inside. If it wasn't moved by then, we would go over and remove the items from his property, and they would be properly disposed of. And I did that just to protect any possible litigation with the cost of the equipment that he has sitting around in his yard. Also, at the request of Mayor Franklin a few months ago, he'd requested that I revise, make some revisions on the trash ordinance and the weed ordinance. I've been working on that slowly. Hopefully, I'll have that ready to go by the April council meeting with the changes. Just FYI for you guys.
Okay.
Any questions?
None.
Okay.
I make the motion, we approve the code enforcement officer's report.
Second.
Moved and properly second. Is there any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Passes on a vote of 3-0. Building Commissioner.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning. How are you, Bill?
I had submitted my report for your review. If there's any questions on that report, we can review those first. If there is no questions on that, we can move to those that were ordered to appear today. I had ordered to appear today the property owners at 128 Wheatland Avenue, 214 West Clinton Street, 514 Wheatland Avenue, 529 Washington Street, 823 Ray Street, 920 West Miami Avenue, and 1224 Spear Street.
I'm sorry. Can you give me those addresses again? Is it?
No, it's this one.
Okay.
Yep, it's on the second page of the
All right.
report.
I'm looking at the wrong one. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay.
Each one of these properties were issued a second 10-day notice requesting they appear today at the Board of Works meeting. We have we had signatures on 5 out of the 7 of the properties. 2 out of the 7 historically do not sign, which would be the 214 West Clinton Street and the 529 Washington Street. Have a history of not signing for mailings. The sheet that you just had in your hand is the public notice report that also went in the paper for a publication to complement the written 10-day notice specifically to each one of the landowners. So we complemented that with a public notice which ran for 2 consecutive days in the Ferris Tribune. I see none of the residents of the properties are here at this point in time. We can go through each one of the properties briefly if you would like. I have some notes for each one of those. Just quickly, on 128 Wheatland Avenue, I have been in discussions with the mortgage holder on the property. They were also copied on the previous notice. They did receive it. They did sign for that notice, so they are aware of the property and the position the property is in. In the last 3 weeks, I have not had any contact with the mortgager. I've left numerous messages, so I'm not sure what's going on within our organization at this time. But I did have initial phone discussions. We shared photographs. We shared information. I had to go through the owners of record, Bob and Anita Vernon, and sign a release and have them sign a release so they would discuss it with me. That was done. We did talk. As I said, in the last 3 weeks, I have not had any communication with them at all. It's just going to their voicemail. 128 Wheatland Avenue, is the danger with that property is that the main building foundation has collapsed in the northeast corner of the property, leaving it wide open to creatures or anyone who wants to enter that property. 214 West Clinton is a Mr. Murray property who is non-responsive on numerous properties within the city. That property has been vacated and abandoned for a long period of time. There's actually a tree growing up through the center of the house, through the roof. In addition, that property is also listed as having over $960,000 of liens against the property on that one. 514 Wheatland Avenue has been an eyesore for the last 2.5 years. In 2011, the owner states verbally that he gave that property to the city. He wants nothing to do with it. He did sign for his notice that went out in the previous notice, so he's fully aware of it. I also sat down with that owner and discussed his position on it myself as well. So that one is certainly, I would recommend a demolition on that. 529 Washington Street, that owner lives in Peru. That property is in many notices from property owners of failure. That's the one where the shingles keep falling into the neighbor's yard, and the lady next door is an elderly lady and really having a hard time with that. We do have back in July of 2011, the owner did attend a Board of Public Works meeting, did state that he would do the repairs to the facility. I have talked to him a number of times. His last discussion with me was on January 28th. He was going to come to the office and sit and discuss and set up a plan to correct the property conditions. He was a no-show at that meeting, and he's failed to answer the phone or respond since that date.
Is that the Wheatland Avenue or Washington Street address?
529 Washington
Okay.
Street. The other property, or the next property, is 823 Ray Street. It's been abandoned for about 1.5 years. I did talk to the owner back in early December of 2012. He was trying to gift the property. I had talked to him again shortly after the first year, I think it was January 5th or 6th. He was still working on it, and since then I've been unable to have any contact with him whatsoever. So it's, at this point, I would consider it an abandoned property. He clearly stated to me when we had a phone conversation he didn't have the financial means to do any corrective work on the property at all. He was a disgruntled previous Logansport resident and didn't want to come back to Logansport anyways, so he was just basically trying to give it away to get it out from underneath him. So I would recommend that one be demolished.
Is there a mortgage on that one?
Pardon?
Is there a mortgage on 823 Ray Street?
No, there's taxes due, no mortgage, taxes of $1,900, and there's a city maintenance cost on that of $1,600.
Okay.
No mortgage on record. Next property was 920 West Miami Avenue. That is owned by an investor out of Delaware. I talked to him numerous times. He's a very cooperative person. He bought it, did sell it on contract to a local resident at one point. That resident went in the military, came back out injured, and was not able to fulfill the contract, so he walked away from it. The owner in Delaware has stated he has no intention of investing any money in the property. He's just going to let it set and go back for taxes at that. But that physical condition of the property is terrible. The roof is caved in. There is mold on all 3 levels of that home. It is a blight to the neighborhood. I did talk to the property owner to the east side of that. If that building is gone, he's willing to take over the responsibility of that lot and wrap it up into his parcel. So we do have that to do. 1224 Spear Street, property is owned by Joe Dunn. Property had a fire back in June or July of 2012. In August, the owner, Joe Dunn, sent a letter to the building commissioner stating that he was unable to do any work on the property until April or May of 2013. I talked to Joe at one point in time on the property. He clearly stated the same situation. He did not have the financial ability to do any work until April or May of 2013. Joe did sign for the notice to appear today, and he is not here at this point in time. In his letter to the building commissioner, he clearly stated he was going to secure the property and clean the outside of the property, and none of that has occurred. It is still open in many areas, and there's still debris from the original fire still leaning up against the side of the house. There are taxes owed on that property is only $800, and there are no liens other than the $800 tax lien that's on the property. So that on one side but because of inaction on that property, I mean, I'm not sure what the value is there. Joe, according to his letter, feels there's still enough value to do the corrective work and then have the property be marketable or have somebody live in it. Without a complete investigation, I can't attest to that. But by lack of showing up today, I believe Joe, he didn't show up. So I would recommend that property be tore down. And that's the consensus I have for property. As you remember, 2 weeks ago, I had requested the permission to demolish those properties upon the directive of issuing one last 10-day notice and publicizing it, which we have done, which we have completed. I would again request permission to tear these properties down because we don't see enough evidence of response from the owners to reconstruct. And in my evaluation, each one of these properties don't have enough value to put money into and then have a marketable commodity at the end.
I have a couple of questions. 214 West Clinton, did we ever have fire department look at that to see if that could be a training?
Yes, we did. We took a look at that, and because it falls within the 100-foot distance away, the consensus with the fire chief is it's probably not going to be allowed to be able to get permission to do that. And then combined with the elevation of the building being up 12 to 14 feet above the alley elevation and the tree growing up in the center.
Okay. And the second question is, I apologize for not knowing, how much money do we have left in our unsafe building fund?
We do not currently have enough funding to demolish all 7 properties that you have in front of us. We have enough funding left at this point to demolish three properties on the list, which I feel are in the worst condition. If you'd like it, 514 Wheatland Avenue, 1224 Spear Street, and 920 West Miami Avenue would be the 3 most egregious properties that we have that's on the list of 7, so that we're able to react immediately to that. Now, that is taking in consideration that we have a committed dollar value to the North Street facility, which we had at 521 North, the old Eclipse building, which we have to date been unable to come to an agreement with the abutting property owner on that. So at this point, my position on that is that we are not moving forward with demolition on that property until we get some resolution with the abutting property owner.
Okay.
So that value is still out there, but it is extracted out of what we have funds available.
Okay, it is extracted.
It is extracted.
How much more money would we need to complete everything on this list, approximately?
About $140,000.
Okay.
Now again, that 140 also includes the anticipated expense that we have at the downtown facility, which was 135 East Market, I think. 315 East Market Street. That includes that value as well.
And in the 140?
Yes.
The additional 140?
Yes.
Okay. I would like to order the demolition of all of them or to start the proceeding. We help me out here, we would need to advertise in the newspaper again?
No, well, we don't have to advertise in the newspaper for bids for doing the work.
Right. It's to notify the owners. Have the owners been notified by all, pardon me, by all statutory requirements?
Yes, they,
Okay.
So could we go ahead and just affirm his demolition order and allow him to do them as funds are available and pick and choose which ones need to be done first?
Is that in the form of a
I'd
motion?
make a motion that we do that.
Second.
Affirm your demolition order on all properties, subject to your management of the financial resources that are needed.
Second.
It's been moved and properly seconded. Is there any discussion? Yes, I'd like to add that I think it would be wise to at least inform council as to where we're at. Let's put together a report complete with pictures of everything that we've done so far. And then I think it would be wise of us to also put together some more photographs of these properties and the condition that they're in. And honestly, I've had nothing but good feedback about what we're doing and how we're being aggressive in demolishing these properties. And I think council would tell you the same thing. I think this is one of the best things that we've done in the 14 months that we've been here. But it's wildly popular among the residents, and I would encourage you to put together the cost estimate so that we can go back to council again and ask for more money if that's what we decide to do. We don't find another way to do it. So it's been moved and properly seconded. I've had some discussion. Is there anybody else that would like to add anything to any comments? All right, it's been moved and seconded. All in favor of affirming the request of the building commissioner to demolish the properties listed, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed. Passes on a vote of 3-0. Now, the building department report in its entirety.
excuse me, just one more second. I got one other item. We have 98 Eel River Avenue, which is a condemned property. We have a group that has engaged and contractually committed to buying that facility and to reconstruct it. So I would like permission to remove the condemnation order on 98 Eel River Avenue, allowing Block Investments out of Peru, Indiana, to go in and reconstruct that property. And then also as a side note, they are also interested in 102 Eel River Avenue, as well as a few other pieces of property that we have here in Logansport. And they are going to be here on March 7th to sit down and go through some of the other property locations they have an interest in to reconstruct. The format that I'm using with that group, as well as any group that's interested in a condemned property, if the owner of the property is willing to agree to walk away or gift the property, our approach is that if we have an estimate of the demolition cost, we're requesting or we're requiring that value be put up by the developer as a surety or as a bond for the period that they're doing the reconstruction. If they walk away, we use that surety to complete demolition, or if not, then they get the surety back free of charge. That's the approach we're taking with Block Investments, and they're very amiable to doing that.
So I would make a motion that we lift the condemnation at 88, is it 88? 98 Eel River Avenue.
Second.
It's been moved and properly seconded. Is there any discussion regarding 98 Eel River Avenue? Hearing none, all in favor of removing the condemnation, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed. Passes on a vote of 3-0. Now I would make the motion that we accept the building department report in its entirety.
Second.
It's been moved and properly seconded. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of approving the building department report, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed. Passes on a vote of 3-0. Thank you, Bill. Superintendent of Public Works.
Good morning.
Morning, Dan.
You have before you my report for the Public Works Department. While you have time to thumb through that, hopefully you'll approve it. I had a call yesterday from Wilkinson Heating. They are doing a complete new HVA system at McClure's at the corner of Burlington and Main. They request my office to close the alley March 1st from like 9 to 11 in the morning so they can get a crane in there and set the heating units on top of that building.
That's this Friday.
That's this Friday, weather permitting.
Bill, do you need a building permit for a new HVAC unit?
Do they need a building?
I have a question for Bill.
Oh,
Did they secure one yet?
I have to double check, I'm not sure they have.
Okay. But I thought you were going to say something.
with your permission, sir, we will have a guy over there, and when they're done, the crane gets out, we will remove the barricades immediately, but they say it won't be over 2 hours.
I think this is fairly standard. We've done several of these over the years, especially when it comes to temporary closures of streets and alleys for tree trimming or whatever the purpose may be, but
Just want to inform you and make sure you know what's going on.
okay. Well, thank you. I would make the motion that we allow the the temporary closing of the alley on March 1st between the hours of 9 and 11, contingent upon receiving the proper permits from the building department. And it's been moved and properly seconded. Is there any further discussion? All right, hearing none, all in favor of allowing the alley closure, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, pass on a vote of 3-0. Dan, the rest of your report looks good as usual. Is there anything outstanding that you'd like to talk about?
We've been, we've had all of our trucks ready to go since early Monday morning, and I'm beginning to believe I should have grown up and been a weatherman.
You only have to be right like 50% of the time.
That's right.
Would you like to comment about what you did on the 18th Street crossing to try to improve that?
Well, as usual, it's putting a Band-Aid on when you need surgery, but we had an appointment set up, Loctite, and the guy did not show up. He's assured me that he will reschedule. He comes from Peoria, Illinois, and they had a terrible, snowstorm and weather, and I believe him. He does sound earnest, and I believe that, truthfully, that we will address that problem.
But already in trying to make it better than it is, you put some asphalt.
Right, but that's the Band-Aid thing I was trying. We're putting asphalt on wood, and it won't hold, but it
And the
makes it
wood's
smoother,
collapsed.
and when it freezes and rain, it's going to pop out. But we are addressing that, on a weekly basis.
Thank you. And make a motion that we approve the Superintendent of Public Works report.
Second. Is there any questions or comments, discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Thank you.
Pass on a vote of 3-0. Chief Clark and Chief Strong are not here today. Excused absence. Are there any board member comments? Hearing none. Is there any miscellaneous business, including matters not already considered? See Mr. Hayden in the audience. You have any idea when you'll be finished over at the Mavens building?
We're hoping to get done, weather providing, we're hoping to get done this Friday.
This Friday?
We're hoping.
Okay.
We've had little issues with the beams and, we're
Okay.
working on it.
Very good. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.